Open to everyone.
Free communication.
Free trade, free markets.
Open, free, and secure internet for all.
But with freedom comes responsibility.
For ourselves, for others. 地球のために.
Let's create a digital future that conserves resources.
With fair competition on digital markets.
If we can think it, we can do it.
By using resources responsibly.
By sharing data freely and securely.
To ignite creative innovation.
Let's reinforce trust in networks and technology, and trust in politics too. A digital future that's global, free, sustainable, and secure is a promise. Let's honor it.
And fueled with this global energy, I welcome you, dear Federal Minister Dr. Volker Wissing, dear State Secretaries, dear panelists, rapporteurs and facilitators, dear ladies and gentlemen. I very warmly welcome you all to this multi-stakeholder virtual online conference in very challenging times, as we all know. We are bringing together stakeholders to discuss key questions today in order to contribute to the G7 digital and tech track. How can digitalization contribute to improving energy efficiency in key sectors and in SMEs in particular? How can we reduce environmental footprints of the production, of the use and disposal of digital technologies? What are the lessons from good practices and examples in key sectors that provide data governance? What is the status quo in data free flow with trust, and what are its perspectives? We will stick to English today without translation. We will do so in our 2 consecutive parallel sessions after the opening. We have 4 sessions in total this afternoon, and we will provide a very interesting networking possibility during the 15 minutes after the final session before coming back here to the plenary for the closing remarks. Your contribution, just 1 sentence from me, is really key within that process, because as you are bringing requests and political recommendations to the table, that will then fuse into the G7 digital ministerial process. And saying that, I'm now very honored and very glad to hand over this stage to our dear Federal Minister for Transport and Digital, Dr. Volker Wissing. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the G7 presidency, I would like to welcome you to this conference on digitalization and the environment, as well as data governance and free flows of data. I am very pleased that we are coming together here in the established multi-stakeholder format to unite governments, businesses and civil society with the scientific community and young people in particular. Together, we can achieve more. This is the idea that guides us through the G7 process and our work on digital topics. That is why it was so important for us to involve stakeholders at an early stage in the process. We want to break down silos. We seek open exchange to identify problems and to develop effective solutions together. As a group of like-minded countries, the G7 is particularly well placed to lead on key digital policy issues that require international coordination. We are closely bound together by our common values of democracy, the rule of law, and human rights. The G7 countries take their special responsibility to shape a sustainable digital future for all people on a healthy planet very seriously. The opening video to today's event mentioned a promise to be honored, the promise of a free, global, sustainable and secure digital future. This promise was built into the very concept of the internet, an open network of networks, a worldwide interconnected communication system for all humanity. The creation of the internet brought with it a surge of accessible information, open and affordable communication, growing cross-border data flows, and the invention of new digital goods and services. We are using these innovations to speak to each other today, they affect every aspect of our lives. Digital technologies also have the potential to help us tackle global crises. Consider healthcare. We have seen, for example, how technology supported the rapid development of COVID-19 vaccines. And think of the environment. Today we are going to talk about how digitalization can contribute to protecting the environment and fighting climate change. But we also need to talk about the fact that the rapid spread and ubiquitous use of digital technologies have a considerable environmental footprint. Efficiency gains alone cannot compensate for the growing demand for energy and resources. Think also of the implications for society. We see that the technologies that can bring freedom, emancipation, and progress can also be misused. Some governments use the internet, digital platforms, and tools to suppress freedom of expression and other human rights, to spread disinformation, or to carry out cyber attacks. Russia's attack on Ukraine, which the G7 has jointly condemned with the strongest terms, was also preceded by cyber attacks. We see in Russia, and unfortunately elsewhere too, efforts to filter and restrict the free flow of information and data, to erect virtual walls, and to disconnect from the global internet. Those who think of the internet in terms of spheres of influence are robbing it of its potential. Those who try to contain the World Wide Web within national borders reduce it to a cluster of intranets. This would turn an infrastructure of cooperation into an area of opposition. We are countering these efforts by pursuing our vision of a global, free, open and secure internet. We want to protect and strengthen the multi-stakeholder system of internet governance, maintain a high level of security and stability of the internet's technical infrastructure, and improve its environmental sustainability. We want the internet to fulfill its promise of connecting humanity and advancing societies. And I am pleased and grateful that you have accepted our invitation to contribute to our free, global, sustainable and secure digital future. The results of your work today will be summarized by professional reporters from the Daimler Foundation and influence the G7 digital ministerial process. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the reporters for their support, and I look forward to a lively and productive exchange in the 4 breakout sessions and wish you all a successful conference. Thank you very much for listening and for participating today.
Do we. Thank you very much, dear Federal Minister. We'll dig deeper in a bit, but before that, I want to hand over the stage now to Dr. Franziska Brandner. She's State Secretary at the Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Climate Action, for her welcome address. Very much looking forward.
Yes, a very warm welcome to this G7 format, and I'm very honored and pleased to be able to deliver a few remarks, and thanks Volker Wissing for co-hosting and working together on this event. I think it is great to see that we have so many actors online joining us in this debate, and I think it's a key one when we talk these days about what are the future challenges. And it's good that we have the non-governmental sector with us, and it's your chance to feed in your ideas, your suggestions into the process, so make best use of today. We will really look at it. It's important for us to get your point of views. And we know that in order to tackle the challenges of climate protection, but also of security, of better health, of better life of our citizens, we want to use data everywhere and at best by everyone. And we know at the same time that if we do increase data use, we will have energy use that is going up as well. So we need to reduce the environmental footprint of the production, the use, the disposal of digital technologies. And we know that we have to still bring communities here together, the sustainability community, the digital community, the scientific communities, and really make best use of both worlds. I give you one example. When you have one artificial intelligence model, the energy it uses is about 5 cars in their entire life cycle. So we know that we have to work on efficiency by design and give transparency to consumers so that they can choose at the end what is best. Same, and Mr. Wissing addressed it, and I would like to stress it, it's the importance of an open and safe digital governance infrastructure. Public sphere is a critical infrastructure. We see this these days, and it's important to get your input on this too. I wish you a very good and constructive session today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much also for these opening remarks. I'm now crossing over here to our dear panel, and I'm very happy to introduce, for setting the scene to you, to your right, dear Minister, from you looking to our panel, Iris Plöger, belonging to B7. She's a member of the executive board of the BDI, which is the Federation of German Industries, and she's responsible there for digitalization, innovation, healthcare, law, competition, and consumer policy, so literally everything we have to talk about. To her right, you see Ruslan Bivoino. He's an economics student from Germany, and he's serving as a Y7 track Sherpa during the Germany's G7 presidency. In this role, he coordinates deliberations on how to make our democracies more resilient, and what is very important to him, very inclusive and more inclusive. And before joining the youth engagement group at the G7, Ruslan represented German youth as a German UN youth delegate. So happy to have you here. And to your right, we are digitally connected. Of course, we also use these methods with Angela Beer. Since 2016, she has been the director of international projects and programs at the German foundation DSW, which is the Deutsche Stiftung Weltbevölkerung in Hannover. And in this function, she manages the project management, M&E, and resource mobilization work areas at the DSW. And since December 17, she has been a member of the board of the Association Development Policy and Humanitarian Aid of German non-governmental organizations called VENRO. So very happy to have you all here for a very short panel of, let's say, 17, 18 minutes. Dear Minister, just a very quick look back to your first 100 days functioning as the Minister for Digital and Transport. How did they pass so far?
Well, they passed quite different from what I had expected when I took office in the beginning of December last year. After 75 years of peace, war has returned to Europe. And this attack of Russia on Ukraine, which constitutes a breach of international law, is really horrible. So we are doing everything to support the refugees coming from Ukraine. I personally visited the Ukrainian-Polish border, saw people crossing the border, so many people at the same time. Older people, young women with babies on their arms, and they really need our support. And I felt personally responsible for ensuring that refugees reach Germany safely and aid supplies reach Ukraine. So we are organizing a lot of things because I'm not only Minister for Digitalization, but also for Transport. So we made an accent, the first accent on this topic. But we have also taken the first important steps in the area of digital policy. We have reorganized and concentrated the federal government's digital policy competences. And the key concern is encouraging and supporting key technologies that make the digitalization itself more sustainable. So this is what we want to do in the next years, and we started immediately.
So I'm very impressed also, you are talking about refugees, how digital means help, to organize help in our country, for example. I want to open up another page, and I'm coming to you, Iris. Together with other 50 representatives, you formed She Transform IT in 2020. What exactly is the goal of this initiative, and whom, I especially ask, whom do you need to bring it to life?
Everyone, I guess. That is the clear answer, but it's a bit difficult once we talk about the Ukraine and the war to come back to these kinds of topics, to be honest. But let's put it that way. Now we have a foreign minister who says that we need a feministic foreign policy, so why don't we think about also a feministic digital policy? This is not only because it's a need of participation, but it's simply because our future will be digital. So therefore, we used the Digital Summit in 2020 to found this network, which is really across all stakeholder groups and also with all participants in the parliament, nearly all participants in the parliament. And we founded this initiative because we've seen there's a lot of ambition, but it's difficult to pull all these different powers together. So I'm glad that the State Secretary Daniela Kluckert is also part of it. And it's really also a question, of course, of the use of data. We see that we only have 17% of IT experts, female IT experts in Germany, which is really a shame. And I mean, I don't have to quote, I guess, President Trudeau, who said, I don't know, because it's 2016, 17, whatever, we are 50% of the population, but we still have difficulties to get girls and women into these professions. It's not that anyone wants to put up fences, it's simply they are not interested in it. So we desperately need role models, and we need to make them understand that they have to be part of it and that they have to be active and participate. It's not something that is delivered to you, but if they want to form the future, and I'm glad that we have a young colleague next to me who probably also has a totally different approach to that already, because sometimes I wonder it's rather a question of generations than it is a question of being man or woman. But still, we see, looking at all the MINT studies, that we really lack of goals. And throughout
Still. And one very quick question related to what you're just saying. Talking about a feministic perspective, do you think female people address sustainability differently? And they have a different form yeah, Mrs. Bear is already nodding her head.
Well, I mean, sustainability is a huge topic, and it's not only climate change. But if you just take the climate change, that also is a task for everyone, for the entire society. I think it's just a question of having the different perspectives, and it's not that all women have the same perspective, it's not that all men have the same perspective, but we need these different angles and perspectives to get the whole picture. I think that's, so they won't form a better sustainable policy than men would do, but I think we need everyone on board.
Roslan is also nodding. I bring Mrs. Bear into the frame now because I want to open up and talking about civil society in general. Mrs. Bear, what is the role of civil society talking about the topics the Minister and Mrs. Plüger already addressed?
Thank you very much, first of all. Let me divide my answer in two parts here. I would really like to say that civil society spaces are shrinking in these times, in the analog as well as in the digital sphere. And that means that this negatively impacts the ability of civil society to make its voices heard and to bring its wealth of expertise to the decision-making processes. I'm really happy to hear here about the female participation, and here I would like to add another part, because I'm just coming back from my first traveling after COVID times to Nairobi and also to Uganda in Kampala. And you can imagine I was really surprised after 2 years of having COVID spread there also, but the digitalization is so fast. The access in a city like Kenya, but also now in Kampala to internet, to web spaces, etc., is so incredible used by everybody. And for sure, I have been really in a field visit, but field, having a look on different projects. And when I was coming back to Kampala, only 2 hours later, my picture about the activities was on Twitter everywhere, and everybody was saying to me, "Oh, that's so nice that you're participating, and thank you for your words," etc., etc. So it makes a big difference. But having a look on the civil society, we would like to call here the G7 leaders to protect also civil society spaces, and that in all national, regional, as well as multilateral forums, and commit to facilitating the participation of individuals and diverse international and national CEOs to ensure full, equal, meaningful and effective participation of civil society organizations. Their voices and expertise must be really included. And coming back to the female participation again, yes, there has been first researches that at least younger girls and also poor women means here vulnerable, really vulnerable groups are more excluded, let me say, from the using of all digital instruments which are needed also now in development cooperation.
Thank you, Angela. We will come back to you. Ruslan, thank you for waiting. What I'm interested now is that you are saying it is key to place the perspectives of young people as expertise. What do you mean by that, and how should it be embraced practically in the future?
Thank you for asking the question. I mean, regardless of today's questions, of the discussions in specific, it is important to understand that beyond the expertise of experts themselves and adults, a young people's voice is really valuable when it is about giving direction, when it is about giving impulses and also providing direction to craft and design policies that eventually serve everyone. So we might not make up 50% of the whole population, though. Not in Germany, at least, but speaking of global terms, of course, youth is a huge part or is a huge societal group. But within the society, I think it is important to catch those perspectives and also to give them room to flourish, basically. Mm-hmm. So I would say, although young people do not bring the classical expertise to the table, we need to have a shift. It's not up to me to challenge expertise, classical expertise and experts, because those experts are the people who actually support us, support youth movements on the streets. So we are pretty much in favor of integrating scientific research and scientists in the political discussions. However, we think we must address the relationship between expertise and perspective. So we always, as a youth group, also on behalf of the U7, say that perspective is also some sort or a form of expertise that is important to have at the negotiating table.
Thank you for shifting mindsets in this direction. Dear Minister, listening to what you just heard, how do you resonate to that?
I agree totally with what Iris Plöger said. I think it's very important that if we create a sustainable and a global society, we cannot organize it mainly by male persons. It has to be designed by the whole society, and then this is why it's very important that we integrate women and also young people in this process. So I'm very agree a lot, and thank you for your commitment that we need more women in digitalization, and we as a government, as a coalition in Germany, we have a lot of ideas on this matter. What we want to do is we want to have an easier access of females to financing and funding, and to ensure better access to venture capital for female founders also. So I mean, this is something that it's very important for us. So, and I think that the aspect of female foreign policy, which is discussed a lot in Germany,
since quite some time now.
But actually, if we see what's happening in Ukraine, and a lot of people are thinking differently about the term of female foreign policy, and I think there's a kind of mind changing also on behalf of the people who are criticizing this idea of female foreign policy. And I think that what we started as a new government in Germany is a very modern way and very important way. I really appreciate that your what you said, so your commitments.
Thank you very much. I want to hand back the question now to you, Angela Baer. I want to know from you, quickly, please frame the C7 process. We're speeding up a bit. We have 5 minutes left, so just maybe in brackets, very quickly. What do you expect from it? Which kind of impact?
Very fast. So the C7 process contributes for
Mrs.
sure.
Beer, I think you're muted.
No.
You're not muted? You're not muted?
No.
Can we check that digitally? Our fantastic tech team will manage.
Hello?
Okay, we'll manage. We come back to you. I come back to you, Ruslan, for a second while we manage that. What do you demand from G7? Yeah, really addressing this process to consult the global diversity of young voices more than in the past.
I mean, speaking from a perspective, I mean, I grew up in Germany. This is a privileged perspective I have. So I think it is important to understand that young people, or growing up alongside those digital innovations, it comes with a certain lifestyle. So I understand the digital sphere as a room of learning, or as a room that provides me learning opportunities, developing opportunities. However, during the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw that it is also a crucial part of our freedom, of the freedom of society, if you use digital infrastructure as a means of protest. So I think it is crucial for everyone, not only us in Germany or in Europe or the West, but elsewhere in the entire world, to focus on this aspect of digital infrastructure, to secure this room for everyone. And adding up to this, it would be a good idea to think about, in order to become a truly digital citizen that is able to have an opinion, to maybe see the access to digital, services as a basic human right of the 21st century.
We still have 2.9 billion people who are not connected with the internet. Among them, also young people. Bridging to Iris again, what are your key recommendations from the BDI to ensure safe and trustworthiness data exchange between actors? What are your recommendations? Yeah.
It's all about data, for sure, and it's so important that we have this trustworthiness of data and the security and the safety of data. So therefore, we work on all these cloud networks initiatives in Europe, and looking at the Schrems II jurisdiction, I think it's just a new approach between the US and the EU to find a solution for the data transfer among the transatlantic ocean, and it's really important that we stand together with all the democracies in the world. I mean, frankly, we have to see there are more autocratic systems than democratic systems in the world, and it's really wise to pull all the energy together and to find harmonized solutions on the usage of data, which doesn't mean concrete access to all data, but the fair use of data, and also the matter of digital infrastructure and cybersecurity. And that is cybersecurity. There's an expert group on the United Nations, an expert group and we really need also there we have to pull the energy and the powers together, because I mean, looking at the Ukraine war, this is really the first war that has the potential also to be a cyber war. The minister mentioned that before, and I mean, people were happy here in Germany that the activist Anonymous declared war to the Kremlin, and I mean, years before, those people were not really our friends, because of course they're hackers, and so we really have to see how we can have joint efforts there, the governments, also among business, also the exchange between governments and business, and of course to have a digital sovereignty of everyone to be secure in the system.
Angela, can we quickly go back to you for a very short answer? No, we don't manage. I apologize. I'm very, very sorry. We try to fix that. In the meantime, dear Federal Minister, you're listening now. I have two final questions. One is about the biggest challenges. You already addressed some of them that you see in this very moment. And the second question connected to is, in policy making, how will you react to them?
Well, there are two central challenges. First, we need to get better at using digitalization to achieve our climate goals in the economy, in transport, in energy systems, but we also need to be better individually. So, and secondly, however, the digital transformation itself, and especially the technologies that enable it, must be as low carbon and resource efficient as possible. This includes energy efficiency, for example, in data centers and in data transmissions. But it also includes the many devices that each of us uses every day. So, I mean, their resource-saving production, low energy consumption in use, a long service life, and last but not least, the possibility of repairing the devices and recycling them consistently and completely. And I think this should be, this is a very important part of sustainability.
So, dear Minister, I would like to ask you now what you would like to abstain from. We leave that for the pause later, digitally. Thank you very much. I think smartphone, it's not the case. This is very important. Thank you all very much for your inputs. I apologize again to Angela Baer that we couldn't bring you in the final frame. Thank you very much for joining. We are now looking forward to our first two sessions that are going to follow: digitalization for the environment and climate, as you just put it, and data governance. Then we have a short break. We might shorten it a bit, maybe to 5 to 10 minutes. And we meet again then at 2:45 for the second session, Greening the Digital Transformation, and session 4, Data Free Flow with Trust. And we'll meet again after another short pause where you have the chance to connect via Hop-in, via this fantastic tool. At 4 p.m. we see each other again at the plenary for the closing remarks and for bringing together all the results from the various workshops. If you're not yet on Hop-in, please make sure that you register now. Please go below the YouTube stream. If you're still on YouTube, go to the very left, and there you see the button for registering yourself. You will be directly connected to Hop-in. We need your name and your email address, and you are in, and then we start. So looking very much forward to your concrete recommendations, and see you again in this plenary at 4 o'clock. Thank you all very, very much.